and welcome to the Housing.com webinar on the question that seems to be on the mind of every end user, investor, and NRI home buyer. And that question is, should you buy a home right now or should you wait? I'm Jamul Ghosh, Editor-in-Chief, Housing.com News, and I'm joined by my expert set of panelists who are here to answer your questions. Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani is the president of Niretco and Assocham. He's also the founder and MD of the Hiranandani Group. Hello, sir. How are you?
Wonderful. Happy to be with Housing.com. I'm very, very happy to be
with you. So be live now, so just saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Very
Moving on, Aashish. Yes, thank you, sir. Aashish Agarwal is the Senior Director of the Valuation and Advisory Services for Colliers International India. Aashish, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here.
Mohit Saraf is Senior Partner at the law firm L&L Partners. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, and of course, a very warm welcome to our audience. So I'm going to get right down to it. My first question is to Mr. Hiranandani. We've just had the RBI make some announcements. Before we get down to the questions and the audience questions for today, would you like to share something on what the RBI has announced and how that could possibly be a good thing for the sector?
I think there are several things which the RBI governor told us today, which makes me extremely positive and happy. The first and most foremost thing that he talked about was that inflation is under control, that our balance of payments is wonderfully high, so we can take care of the country. Oil prices have come down, so there is a positive news of the country, and our granaries are full and the crop harvest is wonderful. So nobody in this country is ever going to starve, at least in the year 2021. That much food we have in our granaries and stocks, so we'll be positive. So that was on the side of the overall situation. On the issue of money and funding availability, there was a very, very positive note, and there was some small negative that I want to talk about, but huge positives in terms of talking about how he has further increased liquidity into the market. He has focused credit to come to NBFCs, targeted loans to go to NABARD, NHB, SIDBI, provided for funding of small and medium NBFCs, seen to it that the liquidity is made available in the various sectors of the economy, and done all these things, which I thought was extremely positive. As far as the real estate was concerned, two important statements came in very clearly. One was that the date of commencement of operations, which were postponed by 1 year by an earlier notification, is now made into 2 years, and that the lending of reworking out the lending is not available only for banks, but also for NBFCs. Earlier, that clarification was only issued for banks, commercial banks. Now it is open for the entire NBFC sector. So I think those are the very major positive things that I heard. The negative thing that I heard was a question which we had raised earlier, that there is too much money in liquidity, but no money anywhere. Which is really that 6.9 lakh crores have been kept by banks with the Reserve Bank of India in reverse repo. Now, can you imagine, on one side, RBI is providing more and more liquidity for the banks to lend to the people. And on the other hand, the banks, instead of lending to industry and business and commerce and home loans and SMEs and other people, they're putting it back at 4%, which has been made to 3.75. So I'm very critical on that. So I was only feeling that if they made the reverse repo into 1%, then there would be a huge incentive from banks to put back in Reserve Bank and actually lend into the marketplace. So I thought that was the only news which I thought was quite serious, which I think we need to really look at as far as this is concerned. Otherwise, the corporate bond market, other things, lending into segments, targeting segments, was, I think it was on a positive side and a very positive note about the whole thing. There were two things more which they indicated.
So I'm going
Which
to
was,
get down to,
sorry. Yeah,
sorry.
go on.
So now, I mean, if you could please just connect this to, the question at hand and the overwhelming number of questions that have come to us from our audience. It centers around one thing, and that is, should we be buying a home right now or should we wait? And what I would like my panelists to weigh in on is, would the answer vary if we were answering it for an end user? Would it be different for an investor? And how would we answer this for the NRI home buyer?
So if I may be permitted to start, the real chance is that the opportunity to buy today is huge. A, because you have funding availability at the lowest possible rates of interest. In the case of affordable housing, there is an interest subvention of 3% for 15 years. So that's a huge benefit that is available to you. And the third is that you are able to buy a choice. Earlier days, when you went to go and buy an apartment, you may not have got a choice of apartments. Today, you can do a building which is starting, which is under construction, and you can also get flats which are ready and completed. And you will get it downtown, you'll get it midtown, you'll get it uptown, and you will get it in the periphery of cities. So I think the reason why you should buy today is that it is the best prices that you are getting from the sellers and the builders and the developers because of the market condition, the rate of interest being lowest, and huge number of financial institutions are lending to you at very low rates of interest. I think a combination of that makes it the right time to buy. And also the fact that you are able to arrange various type of combination of loans, like bridge loans when you're shifting from 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom, and various other combination of loans are now available from banks and financial institutions. So I do believe it's the right time to buy for persons who want to buy for themselves. For investors, wow, good deals, because their stock market has tanked completely. I think moving into the real estate market would be a good idea, and a long-term strategy, certainly. I mean, you'll always make, you'll have a hard asset. You don't need a share certificate or even a digital certificate. So I think good time to buy for investors as well as people there. And plus now, a lot of flats can go on rent. So people are taking a lot of rental apartments because the youngsters want to go on rent. So buy an apartment and give it to somebody else on rent.
Aashish, would you like to add to that?
Mr. Hiranandani has really spelled it out well. What I'd just like to add is, particularly if you are an end user or an end home buyer, the key you need to keep in mind is you're buying a long-term asset. And the key question of should you buy or should you wait is a question of timing. The key thing is, short-term market fluctuations or short-term market, changes should not really impact your decision to buy a 10-year or 20-year asset. The second thing is, if you are an end user, what you really need to ask yourself is A, what is your desire? What is your need to buy? Are you upgrading? Is it about a better lifestyle? Is it about need for more space? Is it about moving from a rented to a purchased apartment? So that's the first point you need to ask yourself. Second thing is, do you have the financial security to be able to buy an apartment? The down payments, the EMIs, and the recurring commitments that come with an apartment, which is property taxes, maintenance, insurance. And third and most important thing, can you do this without really affecting your savings, your emergency corpus? The third and the most important point, which people often miss, is a careful evaluation of the deal. So it's not just the total ticket price of the apartment, it's looking at everything. Like Mr. Hiranandani said, the interest rates are at all-time low. You get tax benefits, you get GST benefits. If you're an affordable housing buyer, you're getting a 3.5 lakh benefit till March 21. So you look at all of these into perspective and you look at the actual returns to you when you buy an apartment, and that's going to start making sense there.
So, a lot of these questions, they are preceded by another question. And of course, that's about prices. We've read a lot of reports, that prices are going to crash. The question on everybody's mind is we have received a lot of participant questions, which is essentially asking what's happening to prices post the pandemic. So, what is your assessment? Are prices going to crash? Are they going to stay stagnant? I'd like the expert opinion on this.
Sure. So let me start with this. Prices is again, short answer is yes. The deeper question to ask is A, by how much? And B, more importantly, how? So if you look at people who have already purchased land, we're talking about projects which are already out there. How can prices fall? Material prices are not coming down, labor prices are not coming down. So how can prices go down? There are three factors to my mind. Government levies, they can come down. You could have a reduction in, cost of capital for the builder, which is not happening as we see right now. Or the third thing is the builder takes a hit on the margins. So it has to be one of these three things which will drive prices down. Is that really feasible in this scenario? That's the first question. Second thing is, if you look at prices going down, yes, we do have a difficult situation today. 2020 global forecasts are saying our GDP is going to go down. But for 21, if I take the example of IMF, 2020 India will grow at 1.9%, but 21, the rebound is 7.4%. So we are really talking about a short-term blip. We are not talking about a serious structural damage to the economy. We are talking about something that's been deferred. We are not talking about demand evaporating. We are not talking about something which is structurally damaged the economy. So I think people need to put that in perspective when they are looking at prices going down or prices going up. And the other point which I'd like to address is this question would really vary not just at a city level or at a macro India level. It varies with micro market. It varies with project. It varies with the quality of the builder. So if you're buying an apartment with a reputed builder in a good quality project, the returns or the question answer could be very different for a project which is right next door in the same micro market.
But I think, let me just add here, Jhumar, that really you have to look at two types of project. One is completed project. These are the projects which are sitting in as an inventory with builders. Now that is a thing where you can possibly get a downside because there is a leverage. Real estate companies are heavily leveraged at this stage. As what Mr. Hiranandani said, there is a lot of liquidity, but the liquidity is not reaching the people who require that money, the real estate companies, the NBFCs. And therefore, there is an ability that a buyer who has cash available or who can get good line of funding from the banks can actually buy a completed project or near completed project at a significant discount, maybe 20% discount. But I think if you are buying a project which is going to get developed over the next few years and you have to pay the EMI, and obviously you will buy from a more renowned developer with a track record of delivering project in time, I don't see that significantly correcting because that is something very different. So I think really what you have to look at is the two aspects. If you have cash available buying existing inventory, maybe right, you might get 20% lower price. And also maybe in 6 months, the transmission of the lending rates cut can actually reach. And therefore you might get even on a rate of interest, a little bit downside benefit. And therefore it makes sense. But if you're actually booking a project which is going to give you 2-3 years from now, then it makes more sense to book with a reputed builder now, because I don't see that changing anything. And I think what is remember that I think there are a lot of demands by real estate group where they are talking about some benefits under stamp duty and registration. And that can also add up, particularly if you're looking at buying an inventory. And you asked one question about NRI. I think this can be probably the best time because the rupee has weakened so much that if you are an NRI and you are sending money into India and buying a flat and as what Mr. Hiranandani said, other asset classes are doing very badly, like stock market has crashed very bad. And these assets, and now they have an ability to rent out. It makes a lot of sense for people for NRIs to bring money into India and convert dollar into rupee at all-time high. And actually they get 10% lower price anyway. So these are very good time to buy. But again, when we say we're good time to buy, we are not saying buy tomorrow, next 6 months.
Yeah. Mr. Hiranandani, there are, some of our audience questions, they've been addressed specifically to the builders community. I'm going to read out some of them. So Anil Kumar is asking that when the whole economy has collapsed, why are builders not reducing the price? Amrita R has a question. She asks that how much can we trust builders right now? What kind of assurance can we give to the home buyer community?
So I think Mr. Saraf just addressed the issue that it is possible that in certain cases you could negotiate a price point that could bring down the prices. But as he also correctly said, that with the case where you have branded products where a commitment is made irrespective of the market conditions to be able to deliver on time, you may not be able to get a discount that you're looking for, but you can get a commitment and a quality of the product, which becomes extremely important to see what it is. So I think that's the positive side about working and doing what it is. So you may not get what you want, but if you go into the marketplace and negotiate and see a couple of products, and my view is that many times people should ask the housing finance companies, which actually to whom you're going for a loan. They are well versed with which are the developers which have been delivering on time, where they don't have a problem in terms of the delivery and other things like that. So I do find that many of them don't make necessary inquiries about the reputation of the developer or the product profile, because the housing finance company, and today the VRERA website is pretty clear as to what is the prices, what are the delivery times, and all the other aspects of the whole thing. But correctly so, the market being stressed, this is an opportunity, and but if you should have the cash in order to encash it, and as Mr. Agarwal correctly said, you have to have your commitment in terms of understanding, will you be able to pay the EMIs? Will you be able to take care of the other parts of the whole issue or not? So I think looking at your own budget, one could possibly take it up, and it could be a positive time to do it.
Yeah. So, this, you sort of preempted one of my questions. So, one of the things that, and I've been speaking to quite a few developers, some of them have been sharing this with me off the record. So this question is both to my legal panelists as well as the industry experts. A lot of developers are now reporting that home buyers are defaulting on payments. The Indian Chamber of Commerce, very recently in one of the media reports, they stated that they are expecting almost 65% of home buyers to default on payments. Now, this is a very unprecedented situation for the market. So my question is two-pronged. Mr. Saraf, if such defaults happen, what would be the legal repercussions possibly for the home buyer? And I'd also like to know from you, Mr. Hiranandani, how is this going to impact the market and the developers? So I'd like to hear your take.
I'll let me surprise you. The installments that we have asked even during this lockdown period, 75% of my customers have paid in spite of not having access to their office and other things. We have had payments on 75% of them. So I don't think it's correct to say that the home buyers are going to default across the board. At least as of now, no. But we have understood that there could be defaults to a part of it. And the answer is yes, it will be there. But we will have to accommodate some of the things, understanding well that this time period is a bad period, and we should give them the necessary time to make the payments happen. Because on one side, if you're delaying the project, on the other side, obviously the payments, if delay, should be understood by the developers and or the financial institutions to do so. And statutorily, also, they have given an indication that this period of lockdown would not be counted in terms of the delay across the board. So I don't think from the home loan perspective, I don't see a problem. From a point of view of the developers, in terms of those who are over leveraged, could be a very big challenge. So I am more concerned not with the home buyers to not make payment, but more about the developers' position where they will not get enough funds to get into the market. That is indeed a challenge.
Mr. Saraf, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, yes. I think I totally agree with Mr. Hiranandani that I think the 65 number is really out of the hat. And I think at some stage, everybody believed that there will be a collapse. I think that collapse is not there, as what Mr. Agarwal also said, that next year, the projections are that 7% plus growth rate. So I would say, my understanding also is that yes, there can be delay. Some of the people who did not pay was not the people who did not have money, but they just wanted to understand, because everybody thought that the world is coming to an end. And if the money is in your bank, you would rather not give it to a developer because that company may disappear. So I think that was an issue. So I would say most companies, even if you see a company like a Bandhan Bank, which is actually gives loan to the lowest strata, they have said that they are recovering 98% of their outstanding. So I would say that is not really that bad story. 65 number is really a number which is written in a drawing room, looking at these issues, not really the real world. And as otherwise also, if you look at the home buyers in India have typically never defaulted because they are not buying, they are investors. They are buying it for their home. They are buying, it's a dream. And it's not going to happen like that. So I would say that's, again, from a market, from a legal perspective, if you look at it, that if you default, then you can lose part of your deposit. I think different RERAs have taken different views on that 10% of the money can be an earnest money deposit and they can lose that money. And that is being litigated. Maybe they can lose a little bit more or less. From a developer perspective, yes, it is a cash flow issue. Clearly, I would say again, it's a cash flow issue because they have to find a new buyer and therefore there will be disruption on cash flows. And to that extent, it puts stress on the developer, clearly. Particularly because most developers are wanting to liquidate the inventory and also trying to complete the construction. But again, the good part is that most RERAs have given them a 3 months force majeure. Maharashtra RERA is given. And also most developer agreement or the customer agreement will also have a corresponding force majeure delay clause, which can get triggered. So I would say things are not coming to an end. And even if there is a default, I would say this is a 1 month default. If you see today, market moved up by 1,000 points. So the world is not coming to an end. I think everybody thought that the world is coming to an end. There'll be maybe crores of people die in this country and world over. It's all turned back. And I would say when things go bad, everybody believes that the next day can be so bad, it becomes dramatic. I would say, therefore, clearly for the home buyers, they should definitely look at it, that there's an opportunity at this stage to buy because there is a stretch in the system and there will be liquidity issues on the developer for next 6 months, 9 months. And therefore, if you have cash available, this is a great time to buy your dream property at a good price.
Yeah. Chumar, I'd like to add here just one point. Yes. If you look at all the major banks in India, most of them are actually trying to move their lending book from wholesale to retail, because that is the one typically with the least NPAs, and that's typically considered to be the most secure way of lending. So typically, I don't think home buyers are people who will default, particularly an asset like as secure or as important as a house. Be on a lighter note, just to sort of set the context for everyone. What typically happens in a recession, like Mohit mentioned, the tendency is to think there is doomsday. Nothing is going to happen. It's all going to come crashing down. The typical tendency we've seen even in 2008, companies which do tend to lay off, and there is stress in the market in sectors like retail, in sectors like travel. There is stress. People will lose jobs, but the typical tendency is you lay off much more than is required. So when things start to improve, like if things go back to normal in the next few days, people will start to hire again. So it's a blip in the economy. It's only a deferment of what is happening. It's not really a default situation to my mind.
As a matter of fact, speaking of payments, we have received a lot of questions where, our audience, they seem to be in different stages of payment. I'll read out a few questions and they are asking for advice as to what should they be doing. So Sukupra, she writes that, in the current scenario, what if you have partly paid the money to the builder? Should we get a refund or should we go ahead with the possession? Srinivas, he takes this point further and he says that, I have booked the house, but not registered yet. So should I go ahead with registration or should I withdraw the decision? So what do we want to tell them? Like, should they be paying the token money? Should they be registering the property? What should people be doing right now?
I think the key reason will be what you will be doing is you love the property, if you want to buy the property, then this is the time to close the deal. But if you have invested in the wrong property that doesn't meet your requirement, then you can look at all these legal options. But if you really like the property, don't change your decision because what has happened because of COVID and market crash. Because I think what is very clearly writing on the wall is this year, I would say this year, if the GDP numbers are down from 5.9% to 1.9%, it is largely because there are 6 months of disturbance which has happened. Because laborers have gone home, they will not be able to come. There is a supply chain disruption. All the things have come to a halt, and to restart the engine, it takes a long time. It is not because the world is coming to an end, pick up your money and run. That's not what is happening. So I would say really, if you like the property, if you're not paid the token money, you can still go back and negotiate. Maybe you can get a little 10%, 5% discount. You should do that. And you love the property. If you paid the entire money, please go and register. There's no point delaying it, because I think if the property is registered in your name, you are an owner. And tomorrow, if the builder is under stress and your property is not registered, people who have floating charges will unnecessarily create problems for you. So I would say if you have paid the money, please register it. If you're paid 1 or 2 installment, and if the prices have come down 50% in your market, then you can probably think about changing, but that probably in no case would be the case. And therefore, it's better to pay the rest of the money and stay committed, because 2 years from now, you will feel that you had a great buy.
Yeah. Mr. Hiranandani, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, basically, I think I agree with Mr. Saraf. If you like the property and you have already put a token and done on it, please go ahead and buy it. I would recommend it, all right. But if you feel that the project is not the one which you did and you made a wrong decision to pay, that's the only reason I would take it off. But otherwise, no, go right ahead and take it. This is the right time to buy. I've been telling all my friends too that you don't get opportunities like that. In the good old days, you'd go to a building and you wouldn't get choice of flats. Today, you are able to get a choice of apartments, you've got choice of projects of different developers, good, bad, and ugly, all 3 of them. The only other thing I wanted to mention to all the buyers is do a little reference check. There is a tendency of people just to look at a project, look at the brochure, and then do a buy. I don't think that's the way to go about it. You need to go to the RERA website. You need to make some inquiry about the developer, make some inquiry about the project. I mean, you look at so many things more carefully than do it. So make some due diligence about the person from whom you're buying or the project or the project that you're buying. A little bit of due diligence on your side, talking to the financiers, the bank and other things. I find that many people are deficient in doing that. So that's the bigger recommendation. Please go back to the financial institution, ask them, do you think I made the right decision and the right developer and the right project? They'll also guide you as to what is the right one to do, because they don't want to lend money for a project which is not, which doesn't have a good developer. So they would also kind of guide you into what the situation is. So having done your due diligence, and as Mr. Saraf rightly put, you think through your heart and say, oh, do I like it? Oh, I love it. Go right ahead.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there is a question that we have about actually, choosing projects, and this relates to the current scenario amidst the lockdown. So Brijpal Singh Narang asks that how do we invest without actually visiting the site, and how do we make a decision then? And this is a question which a lot of the home buyers are echoing right now. So what advice can we give them?
Well, if you're asking me, then I again go back to what Mr. Agarwal mentioned, and again Mr. Saraf mentioned, that you look at something which is a branded product. So you rely on a branded product which has delivered hundreds and hundreds of apartments in the last 10, 20, 30 years. So that's one thing that you can possibly rely on. Go to the website, check it out. But the real thing to check is the RERA website. If you go there, you will get the right story from start to finish. And once you've gone there and you find it satisfactory, you have done at least 80% of your job. 20% is actually the rest of it. And today it's possible to go on the internet and find out so much talk taking place about each of the projects. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But it's good to know both sides of the project, and you will get so much opinion available on the website that it's possible to buy. So I do find lots and lots of international buyers buying our projects on the website. And they've done it and they're pretty happy when they come here to see that the product is what they want it to be. And lots of other good developers who have a brand reputation are selling on the website. But the second alternative is go and see the product yourself. So on one side, you don't want to go to see the product, or you're not able to see the product because of the knockdown, then you have to rely on the credibility of the project and your due diligence on the website.
Yeah. We're also getting a lot of
I think just,
yeah.
Let me just add here. I think the important thing is, one is whether the project has all the approvals or not. That is very clearly the RERA website will give you. The second thing is whether the developer has a track record. I think that if you go on the Google, you can find enough. So at least large part of the thing is done. Now the look and feel of the place, vicinity, that is something when the lockdown opens, you can go and see the place. Or if you generally know the builder, you know that the person will build a great ambience, and you can do that. And that's the only 20% left. So I would say largely you can make decision, use this lockdown time to go to the website, RERA website, go to the builder's website, compare all these issues. And then when it opens up, if you are in the same vicinity, you can go and see the place. Otherwise also a lot of people, NRIs actually, in fact, only book because they know the city and they care about the builder. They only look at these two things, builder and the city. And they don't care about anything else because they know that builder is a reputation of developing regular good product and good specification all the time. And then they don't really care too much.
We're also getting a lot of questions, about these are essentially they're asking for recommendations. So Smita Thorat asks, which of the properties will have more demand, ready to move, under construction, or will it be resale? Mayur Kulkarni is asking, is an old resale property better than under construction or pre-launch? So what would we like to say to them?
I think a completed property is so much easier to buy because it's ready and you can touch and feel it and you can see what it is and you can know about, you don't have to ask too many questions because you can go into it, you can measure it, get the look about it and see what the ambience is and whatnot. But at least let me tell you that earlier, 90% of the people bought under construction properties from me. I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago. Today, it's almost like a 60-40 show. So 60 on under construction, while 40% will buy it when it's ready. So things have changed and a large number of people are also buying ready properties, and we offer both types in various sizes and shapes. But it also depends on your capability, as Mr. Agarwal put it very clearly. What do you have money in terms of putting up upfront money? What is it that you have a capability of paying EMI? And from when can you start paying the EMIs in the terms of payment? Can you put up the down money or can you put up the entire money? Is it your capability of being able to buy it today and pay the entire amount of it, including all the other outgoings which go along with the possession or not? If you're not able to do it, obviously you'll buy it under construction. So you get a time frame in which you can actually make the payments. And on the other hand, if you take a ready property, you walk into it yourself today. And the second advantage of a ready property is also if you want to give it on rent or lease it out, and it's a ready property, obviously you can start offering it for rent in an early date. We also do now is give properties and sell properties which are already pre-leased. Or you get pre-leased properties from our company, and it's possible to say that, all right, show me a pre-leased property. So you don't need to go and even see the property. You say, this is your property, this is the detail, this is the price, and this is the rent that you're getting. and we give you a package of that plus a rental person ASA. So you get various varieties of things which are available today, which were not there yesterday.
Aashish, I think you wanted to add something.
I just like to add, a small point here. If you look at the history of the real estate industry, about 24 to 36 months back, when GST was introduced on under construction properties, so you were paying 12% on a normal apartment and about 5% on affordable housing. 8%. That really changed the equation for a lot of people. And under construction apartments practically were not selling anymore because people realized it's too expensive and not worth the risk. I think that has changed significantly now. So with a 1% GST affordable housing and a 5% on the apartments, it's a good deal to buy if you really want a staggered payment schedule, like Mr. Hiranandani put it. Secondly, if you're buying under construction, the thumb rule is you buy it from a branded reputed builder. You shouldn't really look to compromise on a few, thousands or a few lakhs here and there. But, keep in mind diligence, keep in mind your right, keep in mind possession will be delayed. So keeping all of that in mind, if it still makes sense financially, it might be a better idea to go for under construction.
All right. We also have one more question where Zafar Masood is asking, what is better? Should I be investing in land right now or should I be investing in apartments? So that's also an interesting question. What would the assessment be?
Well, if you have the capability of getting an architect, designing the house, getting the approvals, building it, going through the rigmarole of construction and approvals and all that, yeah, you should buy land. But let me tell you and assure you that 1,000 are not interested to buy land nowadays and then do the construction themselves. They may buy land for speculating on it, which means as an investor. But there are very, very few people that I know now who want to go through the rigmarole of buying the land and developing. Though I'm not saying, even we do sell land parcels for bungalows and others, but they are very few as compared to it. So if I do 1,000 transactions in terms of apartments, I'll do maybe 5 or 10 max, which would be plots relating to bungalows in terms of total numbers that we do, at least in the urban or near the urban city limit. On the tier 2, tier 3 cities, the answer is different. So there you do find a large number of people who want to buy their plot and then they want to develop it. And some of them even want to incrementally develop it. So what they will do is make a ground floor and live in that house, and over a period of time, maybe develop 1 floor above or 2 floors above, and then rent it out. So these are the kind of models which are available. But I'm talking about a urban metropolitan scenario, and distinguished from that, maybe tier 2, tier 3 cities, maybe more of the plots which would be available.
We're also getting a lot of questions about delivery timelines. So obviously amidst the lockdown, construction work has halted. Some of the RERA authorities have given a 3-month, deadline extension. So we've received a lot of questions where people are asking now how, even if they want to purchase a property, how should they be evaluating the delivery timelines? So what advice do we have for them?
So Saraf will tell you the legal side, but the fact is, the fact from our side is the fact that those properties where the development is stopped, obviously the timelines are going to get hindered because the workers have to come back.
I think we've lost Mr. Hiranandani. I think he's possibly coming back. Mr. Saraf, would you like to start off with the legal part?
Yeah, I think clearly these projects where there has been, the workers have gone home, it'll take us some time. And this is really the COVID can last, the lockdown can last for 30 days, 40 days. But the impact can be 6 months, 3 months, 4 months. It can be a little bit longer. There can also be supply disruptions because a lot of supply chains have been disrupted. So a lot of these things can have an impact. But again, I think clearly different RERA authorities are giving timelines and they're extending the dates for registration by 3 months. Possibly that your developer will also be excused for the same time under your contract with the developer, or maybe a little bit more. it all depends. But I would say worst case, this entire thing, what we can see today, I don't see project getting delayed beyond 6 months. Clearly, I think if you look at the disease part, we are getting back, and I think the curve is getting flattened. And even on the global side, I think things are improving. The death rates are coming down, the cases are coming down, and I think there was also today a news item that probably we found a medicine. Again, these are everyday somebody tweets, and it may be not true, but I would say we are getting closer to that. So I would say in the worst case, 3 to 6 months is the delay. Some part of the delay may get excused by RERA. Some part of the delay will get excused under your contract with the developer. For some part you might get liquidated damages also. And I think, but you should not expect that this whole thing will delay the project by 2 years and 1 year. I can't see that happening. I'm only thinking about 3 to 6 months.
Mr. Hiranandani,
Jumar, I'm sorry, I have some urgent calls coming in from Delhi and I have to drop off now.
No problem, no problem. Thank you. Anyway, we are also going to end now in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Saraf, also, and thank you, Jumar.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyway, we've also got time for just one last question. So my last question is everything, the real estate business, the changes that we are seeing, it's unprecedented. So what are we to assume? Is this the new normal, or will these changes just be there in the short to mid term? What is both of you, what do you think of that?
So, let me start by saying this is definitely going to change a lot of things. If you look back in history, again, 2008, the financial crisis hit a time when real estate was really booming. This has now hit us at a time when real estate has already been going through a lot of pain. Besides, COVID, by the nature of the crisis itself, is going to change a lot of things structurally. Companies are evaluating their density. People are looking at differently how they want to utilize space. People may want to consider a 1.5 BHK. We're already seeing that instead of a 1 BHK as a separate space to work from home, because work from home will become a reality going forward. So I think there is going to be a lot of structural changes. It will require changes to product design. It will require changes to business plan. So definitely there is a new normal which is coming up. What I also see, and what's also being reported in a lot of mature markets, millennials, who are typically the ones who are blamed for a lot of spending, not saving, not really, believing a lot of in shared economy. I think that is something which we see will gradually start changing, particularly in the case of house, which is a more secured asset and not as volatile as stocks. I think that is another conscious change that we see will happen.
Just to add here, I think if you look at yes, I think last few years, I think everybody believed that you don't need to own a house, you don't need to own a car, you don't need to own a hotel. Everything is available through a net. I think, and that is changing. I think the share economy concept, I think that is a big thing. And I think from a real estate sector perspective, I think people will start understanding that house is just not where you go and sleep, but actually house is a place where you actually work from. And if you get locked down, this is the house which will be important, where we have to hang around for 21 days. So I would say suddenly, and the stock market, the way it crashed, as if there's nothing tomorrow, every company is junk. I would say a lot of emphasis will come back on the real estate sector. People will start buying houses because they don't want to share flats with others. They want to own house, they want to live in house, they want to actually be secured, because people who own house, their net worth did not erode. But people who own stocks, they virtually became pauper overnight. So I would say the whole thing will change dramatically, and this will change behavior. And I would say it will bring a lot of emphasis on owning a place, living in your place, building in your place, and actually living in the right society, so that COVID does not affect you, not that you are changing from one place to the other in every 11 months. So I would say things will dramatically start changing, because actually none of us saw that world can come to an end so quickly. And every next morning, we'll get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and look at Bloomberg and say, what next? I think that's the world has changed dramatically.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end it on this note. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Do be there for our next webinar on April 22nd. Thank you, panelists. It was great speaking to you. That's all for now. Do stay safe and do stay healthy. We'll see you soon.